25 Apache helicopters, $1 billion in stolen oil, 4 hours of absolute carnage. What happened in Venezuela's burning refineries redefined the war on organized crime forever. A cartel had done the impossible, seizing control of an entire nation's oil infrastructure. But when criminals become kings, the United States sends a message written in Hellfire missiles and chain gun rounds. The operation was so brutal that even now, governments refuse to discuss the full scope of what transpired. But the satellite footage tells the story. The burning refineries tell the story. And the global shockwaves that followed prove one undeniable truth. When America's energy security is threatened, nowhere is safe. Subscribe to Navy Warfare right now, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. What you're about to witness will change everything you thought you knew about modern combat operations. Don't forget to become a sponsor through the link in the description. Your support keeps us bringing you the military truth others won't touch. August 2024. The Tren de Aragua cartel had achieved what no criminal organization in history had ever accomplished. They owned a country's oil supply. Venezuela's collapse had been years in the making. Economic devastation, government corruption, and social chaos created the perfect storm for criminal expansion. But what the world witnessed was unprecedented: a drug cartel evolving into an oil empire. The transformation was methodical and terrifying. Starting from prisons and urban slums, Tren de Aragua spread like a malignant cancer across Venezuelan territory. They corrupted officials, eliminated competitors, and gradually infiltrated the country's most critical infrastructure. By summer 2024, they controlled every major refinery from Maracaibo to Puerto La Cruz. These weren't amateur operations. Smuggled Iranian technicians provided technical expertise, while corrupt military generals accepted bribes to provide security. Soviet-era anti-aircraft systems appeared around refineries, manned by cartel fighters who had transformed from street criminals into quasi-military forces. The cartel had weaponized Venezuela's oil, turning the world's largest petroleum reserves into their private treasury. Black market sales funded operations from the Caribbean to West Africa. Rogue nations became customers. Terror groups received financing. The entire global energy market trembled under cartel manipulation. For Washington, this represented an existential threat to hemispheric security. If you're fascinated by how criminal organizations evolve into military threats, Navy Warfare is your channel. Subscribe now and drop a comment. Your engagement helps us analyze these complex operations. The Pentagon's response was swift and devastating. Operation Burning Crown. Unlike traditional counter-narcotics missions, this was warfare against a quasi-state actor. The enemy possessed advanced air defenses, military-grade weaponry, and territorial control. They had transformed oil refineries into fortified complexes defended by fighters willing to die for their criminal empire. The American strategy was brutally simple: destroy the cartel's oil infrastructure, eliminate their military capabilities, and seize control of Venezuelan refineries before other hostile actors could intervene. 25 AH-64D Apache longbow helicopters formed the operation's spearhead. These weren't standard drug interdiction missions. This was a full-scale assault against entrenched positions defended by sophisticated weapon systems. Supporting the Apaches, FA-18 Super Hornets from carrier-based squadrons established air superiority, while MQ-9 Reaper drones provided intelligence and precision strike capabilities. Special operations forces aboard MH-60 Blackhawks waited offshore for ground operations once the aviation assault cleared target areas. At 0530 local time, the Apaches lifted off from forward operating bases in Colombian territory. Their formation stretched across the dawn sky like mechanized death itself, each helicopter carrying maximum ordnance loads of Hellfire missiles, Hydra rockets, and 30mm chain gun ammunition. The cartel had prepared for war. Intelligence reports confirmed Iranian-supplied surface-to-air missiles, Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft cannons, and man-pad systems distributed throughout the refinery complexes. Hundreds of fighters occupied defensive positions, many equipped with military-grade weapons stolen from Venezuelan army stockpiles. But preparation meant nothing against American firepower. This is the exclusive military analysis you'll only get on Navy warfare. Make sure you're subscribed and become a sponsor through our link. Every contribution supports independent defense journalism. The first Apache crossed into Venezuelan airspace at 06:15, immediately detecting multiple radar signatures from Cartel air defense systems. The enemy was awake, armed, and waiting. Ground-based operators spotted the incoming formation and triggered alarm systems throughout the refinery complexes. Cartel fighters scrambled to weapons positions as commanders screamed orders over radio networks. Technical vehicles mounted with heavy machine guns raced across refinery grounds, while manpads teams took positions on elevated platforms. The Apaches maintained formation, their targeting systems already identifying priority threats. Hellfire missiles required clear line-of-sight engagement, but the cartel's defensive positions were exposed across the flat refinery terrain. At 06:22, the shooting began. An Apache pilot acquired laser lock on a ZU-23-2 position and fired the first Hellfire. The missile streaked across morning sky and detonated directly on target, obliterating the anti-aircraft gun and its crew in a massive explosion. Secondary blasts followed as ammunition stores cooked off, sending debris hundreds of feet into the air. The cartel responded immediately. Manpads operators fired surface-to-air missiles at multiple Apache helicopters, their heat-seeking warheads tracking rotor signatures. Warning systems screamed in cockpits as pilots executed evasive maneuvers, deploying chaff and flare countermeasures. One missile found its mark. Apache Aero 7 took a direct hit to its tail rotor assembly, the explosion tearing away critical flight control systems. The helicopter spun wildly as the crew fought to maintain control, auto-rotation procedures failing as hydraulic systems catastrophically bled out. Both crew members ejected milliseconds before the aircraft slammed into the refinery perimeter, the fireball consuming what remained of the machine. But the Apaches pressed their attack with methodical devastation. What's your analysis of this tactical situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Navy warfare reads every single response, and your insights help shape our content. The second wave targeted the refinery infrastructure itself. Multiple Apaches coordinated simultaneous Hellfire strikes against fuel storage tanks, creating massive secondary explosions that sent petroleum-fed fireballs rising thousands of feet into the sky. Cartel fighters found themselves trapped between burning fuel and incoming American ordnance. Some attempted to flee across open ground, only to be cut down by 30mm chain gun fire. Others took cover in concrete structures, but concrete offered little protection against precision-guided missiles. The noise was overwhelming. Rotor wash from 24 helicopters, exploding ammunition, screaming engines, and the distinctive sound of M230 chain guns cycling at 625 rounds per minute. The battlefield became a hellscape of fire, smoke, and destruction. Iranian technicians who had been training cartel personnel died alongside their students as Hellfire missiles obliterated command bunkers. Years of careful cartel preparation evaporated in minutes of American firepower. But the enemy wasn't finished. A second manpads team achieved target lock on Apache 13 and fired from concealed positions near the main processing facility. The missile tracked perfectly, detonating against the helicopter's engine compartment. Emergency auto-rotation procedures saved the crew, but the Apache was finished as a combat platform. 2 American helicopters down, dozens of cartel positions destroyed. The battle was far from over. High above, Super Hornets detected cartel reinforcements approaching from southern Venezuela, a convoy of technical vehicles attempting to reinforce the beleaguered refineries. Navy pilots requested permission to engage and received immediate authorization. Precision-guided bombs fell from 15,000 feet, each weapon finding its designated target with devastating accuracy. The convoy disappeared in rolling explosions that left nothing but crater-marked desert and twisted metal. This is why Navy warfare exists, to show you how modern combat operations really unfold. Subscribe, hit that like button, and support our work by becoming a sponsor through the link below. As morning progressed into afternoon, the tactical situation became increasingly one-sided. Cartel air defenses had been systematically eliminated, their command structure decapitated, and their reinforcement capabilities destroyed. The remaining Apaches methodically cleared defensive positions with combinations of Hellfire strikes and chain gun runs. Resistance collapsed as surviving cartel fighters either fled into surrounding terrain or attempted surrender. But the most dramatic moment came when Apache 05 engaged the main refinery complex itself. The pilot identified a massive fuel storage tank being used as a weapons depot and ammunition storage facility. A single Hellfire missile detonated inside the structure, triggering a chain reaction that consumed the entire southern section of the refinery. The explosion was visible for over 50 miles, a towering column of fire and smoke that marked the end of the cartel's oil empire. Seismic monitors in neighboring countries detected the blast signature. By 1430 local time, organized cartel resistance had effectively ceased. Surviving fighters melted away into the Venezuelan interior, while American helicopters established air superiority over the smoldering refinery complexes. The ground phase began immediately. MH-60 Blackhawks inserted special operations teams to secure critical infrastructure and establish forward operating bases. Within hours, American flags flew over facilities that had been cartel territory just that morning. The human cost was severe. Intelligence estimates suggested over 400 cartel fighters killed during the operation, along with an unknown number of Iranian advisors and Venezuelan collaborators. American losses included 2 Apache helicopters destroyed and several crew members wounded during emergency landings. But the strategic objective was achieved. The Tren de Aragua cartel's oil empire had been obliterated in a single day of concentrated violence. What are your thoughts on this operation's strategic implications? Share your analysis in the comments. Navy warfare values your military insights. The global reaction was immediate and polarized. Venezuela's government, what remained of it, condemned the operation as a violation of national sovereignty and an act of war against a sovereign nation. State media broadcast footage of burning refineries while describing the attacks as American oil theft disguised as counter-terrorism. Other Latin American governments expressed mixed reactions. Some privately celebrated the cartel's destruction while publicly criticizing American military intervention. Regional powers worried about precedent. If Washington could launch major combat operations against criminal organizations, where would such interventions end? European allies supported the operation's objectives, but questioned its methods and scope. The use of attack helicopters against ground targets in a sovereign nation raised uncomfortable legal questions about international law and military intervention authority. China and Russia predictably condemned the operation, with Moscow calling it another example of American military imperialism, and Beijing expressing concern about unilateral military actions that destabilize regional security. But privately, many governments expressed relief. The cartel's control of Venezuelan oil had threatened global energy markets and funded criminal organizations worldwide. Their elimination represented a significant victory against transnational organized crime. The economic implications were equally dramatic. Global oil prices initially spiked on supply disruption fears, then fell as markets anticipated restored Venezuelan production under more stable control. Energy companies began assessing opportunities to resume operations in previously cartel-controlled areas. Navy warfare brings you the analysis mainstream media ignores. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for breaking military updates. The occupation phase presented new challenges. American forces found themselves responsible for securing oil infrastructure across thousands of square miles of Venezuelan territory. Special operations teams established perimeters around major refineries while engineering units assessed damage and began restoration efforts. Local population reactions varied dramatically by region. Some communities welcomed American presence as liberation from cartel control, while others viewed foreign troops as occupying forces regardless of their stated mission. Cartel remnants began asymmetric resistance operations. Improvised explosive devices targeting American convoys, sniper attacks against isolated positions, and propaganda campaigns portraying the operation as an invasion rather than liberation. The Pentagon faced difficult decisions about force levels and mission duration. How long would American troops remain in Venezuela? What constituted mission success? When could Venezuelan authorities resume control of their own oil infrastructure? These questions became more pressing as other actors began positioning themselves for influence in post-cartel Venezuela. Russian military advisors were reportedly moving toward Venezuelan borders, while Chinese economic delegations expressed interest in oil development agreements. What had begun as a counterterrorism operation was evolving into something much larger, a potential long-term American presence in South American energy markets. This is the kind of strategic analysis that sets Navy warfare apart. Subscribe now, smash that like button, and become a sponsor to support our mission of bringing you military truth. The tactical success of Operation Burning Crown was undeniable. In less than 12 hours, American forces had destroyed a criminal organization that controlled billions of dollars in oil assets and threatened regional stability. The Apache helicopters had proven their devastating effectiveness against fortified positions, even when defended by sophisticated air defense systems. The coordination between aviation assets and special operations forces demonstrated the evolution of American military capabilities. But the operation's strategic implications extended far beyond tactical victories. The United States had demonstrated its willingness to conduct major military operations against non-state actors who threatened American interests, regardless of their host nation's sovereignty claims. For criminal organizations worldwide, the message was unmistakable. Achieve sufficient scale and capability, and you become a legitimate military target subject to the full spectrum of American firepower. The burning refineries of Venezuela became symbols of this new reality. No criminal empire, regardless of its sophistication or territorial control, could challenge American interests without facing devastating consequences. What do you think this operation means for future conflicts with criminal organizations? Are we seeing a new model of warfare? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Navy warfare reads every single one. By December 2024, American forces maintained security control over Venezuelan oil infrastructure, while negotiations continued regarding long-term arrangements. The cartel that had once ruled an oil empire was reduced to scattered remnants hiding in remote jungle areas. The refineries themselves told the story, some destroyed beyond repair, others slowly returning to operation under American oversight, all serving as monuments to the price of challenging superpower interests. Venezuela's oil was flowing again, but under very different management. The question wasn't whether the operation succeeded, it was whether America was prepared for the responsibilities that came with victory. Remember to subscribe to Navy Warfare, hit that notification bell, and become a sponsor through the link in the description. Your support enables us to bring you the military analysis that shapes understanding of modern warfare. This is Navy Warfare, where we show you how battles connect across continents, from cartel wars in South America to global energy security, from Apache gunship tactics to the diplomatic consequences that reshape nations. The helicopters returned to base, but their shadows still stretch across Venezuelan soil. The age of criminal oil empires is over. The age of American energy security enforcement has begun. The Apaches have spoken. The message has been delivered, and the world understands. Some threats are too dangerous to tolerate, regardless of where they hide.